Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the cryptoverse. Today we're going to be talking about long-term market structure of Ethereum. So if you guys like the content, please subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, and also check out the Telegram channel, which you can find a link to in the description below. Let's go ahead and jump in. So we're gonna go through a lot of different time frames, weekly all the way up to yearly. We're primarily going to be looking at Ether against USD, but the first chart I want us to look against Bitcoin. Now, if you guys followed this chart a year ago, which there's probably not that many people who followed this channel a year ago because the channel was still relatively new, but a year ago we had a lot of videos looking at the 20-month Ether Bitcoin moving average. And the reason historically was mainly because it seems to, during a bull market, to do pretty well and hold that level as support. And then once it broke, it was again the bad news bears for the foreseeable future. And in fact, we followed this every single month for like 6 months straight. We followed these wicks that came exactly up to the 20-month Ether Bitcoin moving average. Every single month, that's where we ultimately peaked out. And we said that we're essentially converging up to that level, and once we break it, we should see a pretty explosive move to the upside, just like we did in the past market cycle. When we get above it, Ether tends to do quite well. And you can see that once we got above it, we had a very explosive move to the upside 2 months straight, where the price of Ether rallied against Bitcoin. It went up approximately 52% over 2 months. So this is pretty substantial. Now, we also want to talk about the fact that the 20-month moving average is actually currently decreasing. Well, why is it decreasing? Well, the first thing we want to do is take a measured move going back 20 months. You can see that we've essentially been replacing higher prices, a lot of higher months, with some of these lower months recently. And so as we continue moving forward, we're going to start replacing these months down here with some higher months. And in that situation, we would expect this to start picking back up again, right? And start moving back up. And I think this should provide some level of support throughout the bull market if in fact we are in a multi-year bull market. But you can see the valuation of the 20-month Ether Bitcoin moving average right now is approximately 0.025. So it's still pretty far down from where we currently are. Now, the other moving average that we just want to keep an eye on in terms of the macro view of the Ethereum Bitcoin market would be the 50-month moving average. Now, this is a very long time frame moving average, but coincidentally, that's exactly where the Ether Bitcoin ratio peaked right here. In September, it went up identically to that moving average before getting rejected back down. So these levels are certainly levels we're going to keep an eye on. Now, I understand a lot of people, don't necessarily care about moving averages as much, and I can understand that and respect that. But I do think that these long-term moving averages do play a role. You can see we essentially held that one as resistance for 5 months, and then once we broke through it, we were gone, right? That was it. We were moving into a new accumulation region, and we called, like back then, we said that this region here will be our reaccumulation region of the market cycle. We spent a lot of time in it over here before dipping down. We're probably gonna, and I said we're gonna come back up and spend a lot of time in it again. So I would expect us to spend a decent amount of time within this reaccumulation band. If we maintain our bullishness, then we might even continue moving up it. If, on the other hand, Bitcoin, kicks the bucket in the short term, then there's a chance we just start moving sideways for a while, like we did over here before continuing up. Now, this is the Ether Bitcoin valuation. Let me know in the comments who is around for the channel when we were following this every single month. It's been a long time since we talked about it because once we broke through it, there wasn't really a whole lot to talk about anymore. But you can see that it will start trending back up fairly soon once we start replacing these values with the ones down here. So not too long from now, we'll start to see it trending upwards. Now what we're going to do is we're going to look at Ether. We're going to start with the weekly moving average. Now, the first thing we want to look at is our bull market support band. Now, this level is currently at around $426 for the 21-week EMA and $428 for the 20-week SMA. This is the level we would want to hold in the event of a significant correction to maintain the integrity of a bull market. We can see that in bull markets, we tend to hold this level, right? We tend to hold these levels when we're moving up, right? When we're in a bull market. So keep this in mind in the accumulation phase. We just kind of break it, come back down, break it, come back down. And then in a bear market, we hold it as resistance. Okay, so big differences here. Resistance during a bear market, support during a bull. During an accumulation phase, it's just oscillating above and below because essentially it's just an accumulation phase and you're just looking at natural volatility. So now what we want to do is, we've spent a lot of time looking at the weekly moving average, so we're not going to spend a lot of time on that. Let's switch over to the monthly moving average. So the monthly moving average is pretty interesting because it gives you a better perspective on things. And looking at where Ether has come over the last several months, you can see what it is, what has it done, right? 2 up and 1 down, 2 up, 1 down, 2 up, 1 down, right? This would be if December continues that trend. If we were to continue on, then maybe January and February will be moving back up. But we'll see what happens. It does seem like we're on a pretty nice uptrend here, of course. But these are monthly candles, so they take a long time to print. It's not like we can just jump on and talk about them every single day of the week because they only really change. We only print new ones every month. Now this one's an interesting one. This is the 2-month candles. Okay, the reason why I really like this one is because it really shows you momentum shifts in the market. And one of the things I like about it is we had 4 months where we had this basic identic bottom down here at around $128. So there were 4 separate months where the bottom of the candles bottomed at $128. And another thing I like about the 2-month moving average is the fact that we can draw these lines from top to bottom back up, right, into this region here, to the top of this candle, and then back down, and then back up, right? Just continuing the move. And one of the things that's nice about this is if you were to draw a trend angle, which as we know depends on the aspect ratio, you can see that this trend was around, if we can get it on the line, around 56 degrees, 57 degrees. This one here is also around the same level, around 50 degrees or so, 50 degrees, approximately like in that area. So we have pretty similar uptrends. And then if you take this angle, it is, let's go backwards and measure it. So 126 degrees. And then this one, as we said, was around a little over 50 degrees. So obviously 180 minus 26 would be 54. So then that means that angle's 54. This one's 51. So pretty similar slope down, right, as slope up. And if we were to come all the way back up and draw a trend line at the top of these candles, right, if we were to kind of complete this symmetric movement, then it would ultimately take us right up to that level. And that would actually correspond to just over an $800 Ether. And again, I don't know if this is going to happen. I'm just saying if the trend were to continue, basically over an $800 Ether by the end of the first quarter, if this trend were to continue to play out. And we talked about, the possibility of seeing an $800 Ether in Q1. Obviously, this is not financial advice. A good chance that it doesn't happen, right? If Bitcoin goes back to the 20-week and sits humdrum at the 20-week for 3 months, there's not a high probability that we would see an $800 Ether. But at the same time, if we do bounce back off of this level, let's look at the weekly time frame. If we do bounce off of here and continue on up throughout the first quarter, and we reach a valuation of say 0.045, and the Bitcoin valuation stays around like 18, 19K, then we're flirting with like an $800 Ether. So it's not completely out of the question. I mean, in fact, it wouldn't be surprising if that happened, right? It would just be like, okay, well, this is just it's just business as usual if that happens. Not really anything out of the ordinary there if we were to go up to that level. But note that in order to get to that level, so if we were to get to a valuation of 0.045, we would be breaking the 50-month moving average, which is what we identically held as resistance during the summer bubble, right? This is where we came in and held resistance right at that level, okay? So going back and looking at the 2-month candles, I think it's quite interesting to to see these longer term trends play out. And when you look at these longer term trends, it can really take the stress off of looking at, say, daily time frames when the price can fluctuate so much, right? I mean, Ethereum it's currently at 550, but we know it's broken $600 like a dozen times at this point over the last few weeks, and it's come down down to this level more than once, even further down to this level, and it still went back to $600. So what we're looking for ultimately, I think, is for confirmation of what Bitcoin is going to do. Because one of the things we would want to see Bitcoin do, again, would be to see it move sideways like we did over here in during the test of 10K. So we'd want to see it go sideways, and then we might see Ether breakout. Now, these are the 2-month candles. What about the 3-month candles? Well, one of the things interesting about the 3-month candles is we've always had, we've never had more than 4 months in a row of green, right? If you look historically speaking, we haven't, looking at this one, 2, 3, 4, so 4 greens in a row followed by a red, 4 greens in a row followed by a red. Does that make sense? Well, we're currently at 4 greens in a row. Does that mean we're followed by a red? Well, if you just take it on the face value, you might say, okay, well, maybe that's a possibility. But if you look closer, you can even see that this fifth candle in the short term continued the rally, right? And that's what ultimately took Ether all the way up to like $1,400. It was that then it had a sharp correction afterwards. So it doesn't mean that just because you get into, even if the pattern were to repeat, which of course there's no guarantee that it does. We could just have 5 3-month candles in a row that do well. But even if it were to repeat, you can see that it was actually the 5th month that had the blow off top and essentially took the price 2x, basically from the top here, almost 2x from this prior one before having a pretty big crash down. So these are 3-month candles. 6-month candles look quite interesting. We had 4 6-month candles that all bottomed around $128, $130, somewhere in that ballpark. And in fact, if we finish this month off above $120, $130, which it seems like there's a good chance we will, this will be the first 6-month candle in over 2 years that did not visit the low $100 range. So I think this would be pretty significant. And when you're talking about key momentum shifts in the market, right? This is a momentum shift because this is just more of the same. This is something different, right? And when you get something different, that something different can become the new normal. When you have the new normal, this was the new normal over here. This is just where we stayed for 2 years. Now we're potentially creating what the new normal is. And then finally, we can look at yearly candles. And unfortunately, there's not a whole lot of them, right? We just have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we're currently about to finish our 6th yearly candle. But this yearly candle looks pretty good compared to the last 2 we had, right? I mean, this one was pretty much just straight down from the top. This one was, red as well. It didn't really do much this year in 2019. 2020, a strong move up. We'll see what happens in 2021. So hopefully taking a step back and looking at the macro structure of the Ethereum market can help people in terms of tuning out what may or may not happen on a day-to-day time frame. Remember, short-term volatility, in my opinion, is nothing more than a random walk. Geometric Brownian motion is not something that we can realistically accurately predict. We know that Ethereum does not tend to perform well against Bitcoin until later in December or most oftentimes in the first quarter of the year, namely January. There's 3 years now where January was the major move. So as we said a few videos ago, right, the stars, they seem to be aligning, in the sense that we have Bitcoin potentially going sideways at a fairly bullish level, potentially. There's obviously no guarantee yet, but remember this first move here to this new accumulation level for Bitcoin back at 10K, Ethereum started moving about 2 months later once this started happening. So if you look to see, you go to say July, late July of 2020, and look at the Ether Bitcoin valuation late July of 2020. Those were these candles here, right? This was early, this was the July candle and the August candle. If we switch it over to a weekly time frame so we can better identify when it happened, the trend started in late June, slowly moving up, and then as you get into later July, it really started moving up. And this did not happen until after Bitcoin had been going sideways for, 2 months, 2 or 3 months. And so far, we've only been going sideways for 3 weeks. So the argument here is that if Bitcoin just simply goes sideways here for an extended period of time, several more weeks, then we could see the same catalyst that we saw here. If, on the other hand, right, it drops back down to the 20-week or something like this, then that's an entirely different scenario, and we can talk about that when it happens. That would be an entirely different scenario if that were to play out for Bitcoin. But when you look at the Ethereum Bitcoin valuation, and you see that historically speaking, these major moves of Ethereum against Bitcoin start in January, typically, first week of January. Sometimes they start in mid-December. But ultimately speaking, they have happened every single year. So we'll see if it happens this year. I think the same trend is playing out. I know you guys are tired of hearing it. Down in the fourth quarter, down in the fourth quarter, down in the fourth quarter. Every single time, right? Down in the fourth quarter, followed by a nice move back up in the first quarter. So we're seeing the same trends play out, and I know I've talked about this a lot, but hopefully when we look at the macro structure of the market and look at monthly candles, right, and look at 2-month candles, 3-month candles, and so on and so forth, we see the momentum shifts, right? This is a momentum shift here that's been going on for the better part of a year now. Every 2-month candle seems to be following the same trend, right? We go up and then we go over, and then we go up and then we go over. And then you go to 3-month candles and you see we have four green 3-month candles in a row, similar to prior times in Ethereum's history. You look at 6-month candles. This is the first 6-month candle that's not hugging the $120 line, $130 line at some point during the 6-month candle. Yearly candles, massive explosive move up after a pretty nasty bear market. So hopefully looking at the macro structure of the market is insightful to some people and can help you focus on longer term moves in the market rather than short term moves that we cannot realistically predict. If you guys like the content, subscribe. Let's get to 70,000 subscribers. I appreciate everyone who has subscribed. Check out the Telegram channel. Also check out the Black Friday deal. We're going to end that in a couple days, so make sure you sign up for that if you want access to the Black Friday prices to get locked in at the lower rate. You get access to weekly reports, weekly videos, a Telegram alerts channel, a Telegram chat room, a risk dashboard, and some of the trading view indicators. So make sure you check that out. Check out the Telegram channel, give the video a thumbs up, turn on your notifications so you're going to be here every step of the way. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.